Guys, welcome back to live stream tonight. So we are talking about the $99 RV fridge. So how is that possible? Well, we're going to talk about my van. So behind me, I've got my 2019 Ford Transit. It's a low roof. It's a 148 inch, but inside is a fridge that I've been using for 3 years and had zero issues with. And it's a 110, 115 volt residential style fridge. It's a mini fridge. But what we're going to do is we're going to show you in this stream today uh, where it's at located in the van, how it's being powered, and the components attached to it to make that happen. So if we come over here, we've got some specs. So let me check the stream here real quick. Excellent. All right. So we've got $99 camper van fridge. So this brand is Insignia, and you may have seen these. They're mainly at Best Buy, but they're also labeled under other brands that are at Walmart, Target, stuff like that. And essentially, it's just it's just a mini fridge. It's a 1.7 cubic foot mini fridge. And let me see if I can go to the actual page. So this is it. It's $99, and you can put it in your camper van. Now, how to run it is what we're going to talk about today as far as details on like the amperage, the current draw, all that good stuff. So this is what it looks like. Just plain fridge. You can get these with a freezer option, but I don't think it's necessary. I'll usually, if I'm going to go camping or something like that, what I'll do is I'll just get a cooler full of ice and do it that way. But yeah, I mean, it's just your normal dorm style fridge. And you can reverse the door on it depending on how you're mounting it in your van. Now, the way that I mounted this is I put it on top of the counter. So we'll go there in just a second. But it's on top of the counter. And I used corner brackets to actually bolt it down. And I drew right in with the actually gutter screws because they're very small in depth. And it went right through the sheet metal of the outside of the fridge. You do have to be careful when you're doing this because some fridges, they're using the exterior of the fridge as part of their like evaporative, the unit of the refrigerator, and you might pierce it, and then that $99 fridge is over. Yeah, but let me pick up one more thing. So if you're going with a budget option like this is one of the most important things to have. Well, I mean, just in an RV in general, or one that's budget is a thermometer. So specifically a fridge thermometer, because what it's going to do is it's going to tell you a danger zone. So that's essentially where the where the food's going to spoil, and then it has this between 30 and 40 degrees, or like it's like 32, so freezing up to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, the refrigerator section, and then it'll say when you get above that into freezer territory. So this thing is awesome, and you can get the ones that are nice, big, and fat like this, so you can see them easily. But you really need to have this, I'd say, in any RV fridge, because sometimes if your van gets too hot, it's even though it's trying to maintain a certain level, it might be always chasing that temperature. And even though you have it set for, let's just say 60, like 37 degrees or something like that, it's kind of chasing 37 degrees. So it might not actually be that temperature yet. So if it doesn't tell you, the one you have doesn't tell you real time, I'd get one of these, because what you don't want to have happen is, say you leave the van and the fridge is running, and you go off and you go hike. And then while you're going to hike, for some reason, the fridge turns off, and then just cycle, and then the sun comes out, the van gets really, really hot, and the temperature in the fridge goes up into spoiling territory but then by the time you get back, it's cooled itself down, and it looks like nothing happened. But well, I guess you wouldn't know. My point is, if you came back from your hike and it was in the danger zone, you knew something happened while you were gone. That was my point. Let's see here. Go back to this. So let me type some stuff in. I didn't do it before the stream. So these are 3 pictures. And so what we're going to look at, so we looked at the fridge. We're going to look at it just a little bit more before we go in the van. And right now I'm just going to fill in these specs that I didn't do before the stream. So amperage draw, start, and I'll explain all these. Running watts. Start. And all this stuff that I'm typing in right now is going to be important when we talk about sizing up the battery and inverter to make this happen. So amperage draw start. So this picture right here is showing you the baseline of the van. So this is before anything gets started. And then the next one up here is going to be when it kicks up and starts going. So that's the main draw that it has on the inverter. And then down here at the bottom is when it's actually going to when it's running, and it's already started its cycle, and then it's kind of just maintaining, which is going to be much different. So we got 37 running. I don't think this is accurate. We're going to do that. We're going to do a live run to show you all these numbers in real time. This was just some stuff I was trying to prep before the stream. Watt start, it's 489. Eight. Yeah, I think these are not right. So one thing you're gonna see when we do this whole thing is if you decide to get a 110 or 115 volt fridge, so household power, there is a there's a kickstart to kickstart the compressor, and it takes a lot of amperage to make that happen, to kind of kick it on. Now you don't have this with a 12 volt. You do have this with 12 volt, but it's much more mild. They're designed for 12 volt circuitry. So if you get a household one, it's using that. It just needs more juice to kickstart it. You'll see when we get in there. So I'll update these when we get back out here. Then the minimum inverter needed to operate. So we got a 1,000 watt and a 2,000 watt inverter. We'll explain that too. All right, so now we got some stuff. Let's go back over to this fridge. So it's a $99 fridge. You can pick it up at Best Buy or any place that has a 1.7 cubic household fridge. And then down here for specifications, if we look, let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. What's nice is the form factor of this is really nice. You know, it's about 19 5/16 inches by 17 5/16 by 19 and a half. It's a good size for a van, particularly if you have a small van. And then right here, you can see Doesn't have a freezer, and it's 115 volt for the voltage. Now this will fluctuate. Mains power might be like 120, 110, 115. It's all going to be in that range. So there's the fridge itself. So next, we're going to look at these specifications as far as how it runs. So in order to run this fridge, you're going to need to, unlike an RV fridge that runs off a 12 volt, you're going to need an inverter to invert the 12 volts up to 120 volts or 110. And the one that I'm using in the van behind me is a Renogy 2000 watt inverter, and it's a pure sine wave inverter, which is really important. It's clean power, so it's what closely mimics household power. You gotta be careful. Some inverters are not pure sine wave inverters, and so it's a dirty signal. So I'm gonna briefly explain that. If you guys have any questions, ask me. So let's talk about, ignore these stuff down here. Let's go here. Go one more page over. So a pure sine wave inverter. So what we have is on the top, we have, this is a non-pure sine wave. So it's more like a jagged. And then the pure sine wave is down here at the bottom. Cannot write tonight. And the pure sine wave is the bottom, and it's a cleaner sine wave. And so this one at the top, it will run off this one at the top. But the problem is if you have delicate circuitry, this over time, it may damage the circuitry because it's trying to mimic it, but it's not a pure sine wave. And we could get into another video, but I just wanted to quickly show you that there's a reason this says pure sine wave, and they're usually much more expensive of an inverter. You can probably maybe at Harbor Freight find a non-pure sine. Well, let's just go look. So go to Harbor Freight. 2000 watt inverter, and you can see one of their Jupiters is modified. Okay, it's modified. That's what it was called. So modified sine wave inverter. That's going to look like this top picture. So this will be modified. So it's a modified. Come on, Nick. Modified sine wave, and then at the bottom you're going to have pure sine wave. So for example, it's 2000 watt, it's $169 versus 2000 watt, $369. So sometimes it's about half. For example, like if this wasn't on sale. All right, so this is what we're working with in the van, and I got a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter, not only to run the fridge, but to run my espresso machine when I go on camping trips. I like to have really nice coffee. So you have to do a little bit of math. So not only do you need the inverter, but you need to understand how you create household power. So how do you create this? So you do that by an inverter. Now, when you go to choose your inverter, So for example, here's a 2000 watt. I chose that, like I just said, because I wanted to run the espresso machine. The fridge we're talking about today only really consumes about 500 watts. Now my espresso machine does about 1500 to 1800. And so that I need to figure out this number. So depending on the fridge, how much power the fridge is going to be pulling or other appliances, you might want to bundle all this together and find out your use case so that you're not just sizing your inverter just for the fridge. So in this case, we're going to show you what two things are running off of it. Yep, modified wave, that's right. Yes. So in this example, we have two things. So this one up on top is the fridge. This is the fridge watts. And then over here, this is what I'm needed to calculate for my coffee maker. So the way you find out what you're going to need in your van, for this example, we're going to say that you want the espresso machine that I have and you want to run your fridge. And this gets more complicated, so we're not going to run them both at the same time. We're just going to size one at a time. So the first one right here is the fridge, like we just said, right here. And when we get in the van, you're going to see this. You're going to see this picture right here, and we're going to focus on the watts. So if you look at this picture over here, you see it says 489, and there's like a blurred out 7. Then the 7 and the 4 are kind of blending together. So this is the surge. So this is the power surge that is created by the fridge being turned on and demanding power. So when you turn the fridge on, or you turn any 110 volt appliance on, in our case, we have our appliances already plugged in to the inverter. So we don't have to turn the inverter on, then turn the appliances on. When we turn the inverter on, the appliances are live. So when we turn this on, this is it's going to show us our surge of amperage and watts from the fridge. So this right here, if you guys see, let me pop that up. Okay, let me make this smaller. There you go. So this right here, this is our baseline. So this is before I turn the inverter on. We see that our battery has 13.5 volts. We see that we've got negative 5.78 amps. That is the interior lights of the van drawing power. And then we've got it using 78 watts. So the lights in there are using 78 watts, which is a little high. Over here on the right, so this picture right here, this picture is showing us when we flip on the power switch, we're taking multiple photos. So do like a photo burst. And then what I do is I select the one that is the highest number. And that's going to tell us our peak demand on the refrigerator. Now, this is always kind of a lagging indicator. So what might happen is when we turn the power on, when we turn the inverter on, and the fridge clicks on and draws that initial power to kick the compressor on, we actually might not be able to visually see in this display the peak current because it happens so fast and it's just a blip on the radar that it doesn't actually show it on the display. So even though it says 4 and then a little blurred out 700 watts, it could be upwards of 1,000. So I found this out a long time ago because what I did was I had a cheap 500 watt inverter. It was very cheap. It was this one here. I'll show it to you. It was Harbor Freight. I think it was a 500 watt. So this is what you do not want to do. Let's see here. So maybe they might not sell it anymore. Okay, let's just go with, just for example purposes, we have a 400 watt modified sine wave inverter. So we got 400 watts with 800 watt peak. So technically, if it starts at 489, technically we have enough room, right? But we actually don't. Even though this photo says that we haven't hit 500 and we're not over 800, you think that the fridge would cut on, but for whatever reason, it's just not enough juice to kickstart that compressor to start running. So that's why you kind of have to take these numbers with a grain of salt when you're doing stuff in your van, because on paper it shows that a 400 to 800 watt peak inverter should work, but in reality it doesn't. So what you could do is go up to 1,000 watt inverter, which would be, you could do that. You could use 1,000 watt inverter to run the fridge that we're going to show you in the van in just a second. I went with the 2,000 watt because if you remember, I like coffee, and my coffee maker demands 1,800 watts. So what'll happen is I'll be covered for my coffee maker, and then just by default, since it's such high watt inverter, I'm good to go with my fridge. All right, so that kind of lays the groundwork for this discussion. So we might have 489 watts, but our peak could possibly be anywhere from, let's say, 700 to 1,000. So that is now that is not what it takes to run the fridge consistently. So if you see this third picture over here, we got 0.64 amps when it's running, but I don't think this is accurate. I'll tell you why. So as I was doing tests in the van before this video to get ready for the stream, sometimes what happens is the compressor, it kind of has to like find itself, so it'll click on, try to ignite or start the compressor motor, and then if it's not in the right position, it'll click off, and it'll kind of click on and off until it satisfies itself and starts running. So I think what happened is in this photo, this one down here, that was when it clicked off. So the cool thing is we're going to go right now into the van. We're going to kick on the inverter and compressor, and we're going to show you what this display shows. So let's go ahead and hop in the van. And I might do it a couple times just to make sure stuff's in focus. So let's turn this on. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop in the van. I'm going to show you the layout and how everything is put together. And then what I'll do is I'll go back, we'll zoom in, we'll kick this inverter on, and you guys can see what's happening. All right, let's see here. Wait to get in focus. All right. Yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, so we're inside the van. Turn this down. And this is the fridge. So it doesn't look like a Best Buy fridge, right? So what I did was I wrapped it in the automotive fabric that I had, and it just kind of makes it look like it's a built-in install. What's cool is you can get these little patches. So we've got like REI, we've got Venture Van Expo that I went to, and this kind of like could be a little patch wall. So that's what it did for me. The top has a latch right here, and this latch is because since it's not a designated RV fridge, you want to make sure the door stays locked, because that can be a big problem. I've not latched this and everything falls out because you feel like it's kind of shut, but it's really not shut. So make sure you put some type of locking mechanism to lock the door. Come on, camera. 1 second. All right, technology. Make sure I'm back. All right, I'm back. So this is our fridge. Make sure you have the lock. So this lock is just something I bought at Lowe's. It's just kind of like a hook lock. And you just put it, it's one screw into the plastic and one screw into the top. Like I said earlier, you always want to use a very shallow sheet metal screw. Gutter screws work really well because they're usually never more than 1/4 inch or less. So here's the fridge. You unlock it, and when you open it, it's just a normal fridge. So I've got it open. I always put it on the coldest setting, and I just do that just for safety. If one, when you turn it on, it's going to take a minute to get cold. So keep it on the highest setting is going to immediately turn the fridge on. And then two, as soon as you get to your destination or start to go camping, you can dial it back. Next, you can see that it's just sitting on top of the counter. So it's got its feet. And then this partition right over here is removable. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. And what I do is I take this off, and then there's brackets. So if I ever needed to take this out, it's extremely easy to take out. And then at the top, what I've done is I've brought the fridge forward. So not only for aesthetics and ease of opening, but it's brought forward so that there's an air space in the back so that air can come up to the bottom. And then up here, there's about 3 inches that goes all the way back, and so the air can circulate. So that's really important. Since this compressor not only vents on the back, but it vents on the sides, what I've done is I've put a 1/2 inch block over here on the right side to offset it from the wall. And I've done the same over here. So behind this is the actual wall board. And then there's an air gap. So there's a 1/2 inch air gap on the left and the right hand side. Because the way they make these fridges, a couple of years, let's say 10 years ago, they had the evaporator coils on the back.
So you saw the wire with all the pipes running through it, which was visible on the back. Now they've integrated it into the fridge walls, which I'm not sure why they did that, because it seems that it's more inefficient, because that heat that's trying to be evaporated it's so close to the insulation inside of the fridge instead of being disconnected. I don't know. But that's just, they're all made that way. So you won't see those coils on the back that are integrated into the walls of the fridge. It's kind of weird. But this thing is bolted in here, and this has been this way for 3 years. I've gone on rutted roads, potholes, going hiking, and I mean, you can hear everything shake around inside, but it works. It's just no problem. Now, what I've done is I have directly wired this into the inverter. So I'm going to hop over here. I'll show you something really quick.
So right here, if we go to the inverter and we click on this picture, see how it says high output AC terminals? So there's these plugs here, and then there's this high output. And I directly wired the fridge. So I extended the plug, and it's directly wired into these terminals because it gives you the most current available out of the inverter. These plugs, you'll have just a little bit of current loss. They still work fine, but you're going to get your maximum direct current and voltage with directly wiring it to this. So they call it high output. I don't see anything in the manual that says what percentage difference it is, but for a fridge to be kick-started, you need to do that. And then these other outlets, what I've done is, one is actually an extension cord plugged into a line that is going all the way to the outlet in the van. So there's only 2 cables plugged into the inverter.
Condenser. Yes. The condenser. Yes, the condenser coil. Let me back up.
The condenser coil on the back, the evaporator on the inside. I think I flip-flopped those. So let's see here. Let's see, browser chat. There we go. I don't know why I turned that off. All right, let's hop back in the van. Yes, guys, in the chat, if I flip-flop some things, definitely put that in the chat. Straighten me out while we're doing this live. Okay, so we're going to go back in, and I'm going to show you where these plugs come out.
All right, so inside the van, we have one outlet here. And what's cool is you can get, let's see if we can zoom in here. So this outlet, this one's cool because you have 2 USBs at the top, and these are both 2.1 amp USBs, class 2, 5 volts. So 2 of those, and then you got a regular outlet here. Now, I put the 2 USBs in the regular outlet here because this is only a 2,000 watt inverter. So you're really only, man, that thing is just clicking on and off. Let's see here. Come on back. There we go. Technology, come on. Okay, we have one outlet here. And we only have one outlet instead of 2 because This is only a 2,000 watt inverter. So for example, when I told you that my espresso machine is 1,800 watts, the fridge can't be on when the espresso machine is on. So what I usually do is in the morning, if the fridge has been running at nighttime, it's usually cold enough so that it's not cycling on and off. It's very rare that anything will trip out because remember, there's a surge. So typically if you have like a 2,000 watt inverter, it's going to have a 4,000 watt surge. So for a few seconds, the inverter is going to be able to power both the fridge and the espresso machine. The espresso machine, when it turns on, the heating cycle is maybe a minute. So once it's done, it goes back to normal. So you kind of have to think about those things. So that's why this only has one outlet. So getting back to the fridge, let's see if I can move the camera, because I really want to show you guys underneath this bench. Now this is in another video, but it's important that we talk about it in this video so that everything will make sense for you guys. So let's see if we can take a trip with the camera into, without making you guys nauseous here. All right, we'll have to scratch that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to, we'll hop on the computer in a second. We'll go back to the electrical video that I took like a year or so ago, and we'll just go through so I can give you guys a visual of what the inverter looks like as far as how it's set up and how the what the battery looks like that we have in here. Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll do that in a second. So back over here, zoom in. Okay. How we're doing on focus. Focus. So now we're getting into the main topic of this video, and we're going to look at this device right here. Come on. This thing is killing my stream. It's going to pop back on in just a second. All right, there we go. Come on back. All right. So we're going to go ahead and turn the inverter on, and we're going to look at, I'm going to check the focus here. We're going to turn the inverter on, and then we're going to look at the power and just double check that everything is looking the way that we want it to look. All right, so that right there should be working for us. If it cuts out again, we'll hop back over on the computer, but I really wanted to show you guys this. So just bear with me while we do this, have these technical things. But here is our meter that we want to look at. But when we first got in the van, we had 99 amp hours. So there's a 100 amp hour battery in here. And this 100 amp hour battery, there's just one of them. And it's an Ames battery. And right now we're sitting at 13.3 volts. And we are at negative 0.66 amps because our lights are on. So there's a draw. And it's about an 8 watt draw. And so this is just a simple battery monitor from Renogy. And I know that is hard to see. We're going to get the GoPro out next time for this. Okay. Let's see if I can get this in the light. Come on. All right. Stand by. We're going to change this camera up here so that we can get stuff happening.
There we go. Let's try this again.
Let's go back to the van. There we go. All right, now you guys can see. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the power switch. Let me hop in here. We're going to take, this is our inverter on and off switch. And then this is our battery monitor. So it's essentially a shunt that monitors your battery input and output. So right now we're sitting at 98 amp hours, so the battery's been used a little bit. It's not full charge right now. I was at about 13.6 volts. Now we're about 13.3. 0.65 amps is what the lights are using. Again, 8 watts, like we were saying. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the inverter, and hopefully we have a cycle on the compressor. So I'm going to turn this around here. And I got a little delay because I want to make sure you guys can see it. Nope, not going to see that. Let's see if that works. Nope, that's not going to work. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to have to hold this manually. All right, because I want to show you guys this right here. So I'm going to try to keep the glare off of it as much as possible. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take our power switch, and then we'll do this a couple times so you can see the numbers change. But we're going to turn the inverter on and watch the amperage and the watts for when it kicks on. So you see it kind of goes all over the place for a second, and then it starts to settle down. So that's why at one point we had about, almost 40 amps draw. But right now it's running, the surge is over, and it's drawing about, with the lights on, it's about 6 amps and 80 watts. So it's not too terrible. Most people think, it's crazy inefficient, but if you had enough solar and having a pure sine wave inverter, good wire gauge, it's not too bad. 6 amps, a little over 6 amps with the lights on, it's not that bad. And right now, I've got my mic right beside the refrigerator, and it's running. It's very quiet. So it's showing that at the current amp draw, we've got about 15 hours of runtime on a 100 amp hour battery. But that's not accurate because if you remember, we have a fridge that's not cold, and once it gets cold, it's going to cycle on and off much slower and cycle less and less over time as it gets to temperature. And again, this depends on the inside of your van, the outside, what temperature it is. But really, it's 6.38 amps right now. Not bad. So it's a good option. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this off. And you can see our time goes all the way up. So it's estimating that with that load of the lights that we've got tons of time. And let's just do this for a couple more seconds, because sometimes if you turn it on too quick, it won't cycle. All right, so here we go. We got 13.2, 0.66, 8 watts, just where we started. So we're going to turn it on and watch the amperage. So notice it's not clicking on. So sometimes this will happen. And so that's like one quirk of this for trying to get enough current to turn the compressor on. But it's been like this for 3 years. It'll keep trying, and then maybe you just turn the inverter off. It's not a lot of troubleshooting. It literally just has to do with turning it on and off. But see, it's turned itself off. And it's going to try one more time. Wait for it. So if it doesn't work, turn it off. Turn the inverter off. Wait till the fridge clicks off. And then we'll just try it one more time. So this time we might need to let it off longer. So we're going to shut this off, let it sit for a second, and we'll go back to the camera.
So as far as the $99 fridge goes, let's look at pros and cons. So the first thing is price. As a pro, it's $99. I mean, if something really, really bad happened to it, you could throw it away and get another one. Another pro is it's a similar size to other RV fridges. So low profile, or that kind of square size. It's easy to build around. Like you just saw, we got it on a countertop. It sits on there cleanly. If you had like a shelf or something above it, this is a low roof, but if you had a high roof van, for example, you would be able to, build some stuff on top of it. So similar size, and it has freezer options. The one that I have in the van is obviously just a fridge, but you can get one with a freezer, and nothing really changes as far as power draw or anything like that. The cons are, first thing up, it's not as efficient as a 12-volt fridge. 12-volt fridges they have very low amperage draw. I've never encountered this, but sometimes the compressors, depending on what kind of fridge you get, they may need to operate on a level surface. It's never happened to that fridge in the last 3 years. I've been on a hill or whatever, and it's still kicked on and ran. So, but I just wanted to put this disclaimer in there that it is sometimes, if it's so many degrees, like more than 3 degrees or something like that, it may not operate. And the final thing is the big one, is you're going to need a bigger battery bank and inverter to operate it. So if you had a 12-volt fridge, you can directly hook it up to your battery system. You're not going to have to invert the power. Everything is going to be good to go. It's a 12-volt power bank, and it's a 12-volt system. Bigger battery bank, there is less efficiency with the $99 fridge or the 115-volt fridge. And that lower efficiency is going to, you're going to need more battery to run and do the same work as a 12-volt fridge. And, so there's some pros and cons. The con that I didn't put in here is it may take a few times to kick start the compressor, and we kind of covered that. And essentially what that means is the stronger inverter you have, the more kick of power you're going to have to kickstart that. As you can see, when we turned it on the second time, it didn't click over. If I go back in the van now and click it on, it's most likely going to work. That just happens every now and then. But once it starts running and gets warmed up, that cold start is not as cold, if that makes sense. So, yeah, $99 camper fridge. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And we're gonna be ending the stream here in just a minute. So I'm gonna go look up that video of the inverter. And while I'm looking up that video, I want you guys to put some questions in the comments below, and we will get to those as I look this up. All right, here we go. Back to the computer. So this is the video that I wanted to hop on over to, but this is the seat in my van. And so this is the battery box. So we've just got one 100 amp hour battery. And you may be asking, why did I pair a 100 amp hour battery with a 2000 watt inverter? And the reason is, back in the day when I was doing all this, this 100 amp hour battery was on Facebook Marketplace, and I needed a 2000 watt inverter to kick on the coffee maker. Now, the math does not work on that because you need to have at least 200 amp hours typically to run a 2000 watt inverter. So for some reason, this Ames battery, the surge capacity that it has to be over 200 amps, like 30-second surge, because I've never had a problem with a surge not being able to make enough power for this inverter. So that was pretty cool. So I've just lived with that, and it's never been an issue. And it also could be the supplementation of the power from the solar too. But this is what I have in the van, and I forgot where I go with this. Let's see if it comes back to the inverter. There we go. So it's a really simple system that I have. It's just a disconnect. We have a main fuse for the battery, and then we have a fuse block for the lights and everything like that. And then as we come back, let's see here. Yeah, there's a good view. So you see we have the inverter right here. Disconnect, our fuses, main fuse, and then this is the main fuse for the inverter. And then in the back, we have a plug going in to, and that is, now you really should hardwire all your lines to the inverter through like an AC distribution panel. But what I did is that outlet is just an extension cable plugged in the back. So for me, I wouldn't do that in the future. But this is a simple DIY technique. It's just much safer to do a hardwired connection. And then on the back side of here, the fridge is hardwired to the inverter since it takes the most, it's the most current demanding. All right, so that is the inside of my van, and that is the $99 fridge. So I see that we don't have any questions here. So I'm going to put this back up on the screen in case you guys wanted to look at this cheat sheet really quick. But as always, if you guys have any questions on this video, any questions about the 115 volt fridge, how to wire it up, any more questions about inverter sizing or battery bank sizing, we can definitely cover that in a future video. So put those questions in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next live stream.